Welcome back to the road to 2200. I'm here. I am 1911. My opponent is 1907. We're doing some Queen's Gambit decline. No, not Queen's Gambit, actually. Just Queen's Pawn opening. So it looks like we may be going into a Jobava London. Or Jobava. And my plan would be to go here. So I will develop here. And I don't know, is there a chance they're going to go to a regular London from here? I don't really know the Jobava that well. Okay, so I know against this, I want to go here. If they try to go there, then I'm fine. I don't really understand how the Jobava works when someone does do this. What is the point of this? I've never quite understood this. I play c6, they go back. I develop my knight this way. Is the point that the knight is on a bad square? I'm not entirely sure. I am going to drive the knight away because I'm not a big fan of having my knight here. So I don't also think I want to give this up. I don't think this would be devastating, but I'm not sure why I'm going to give that to my opponent when I could do other things. I mean, there is a question of maybe here. But I think I'll just go to this square, which seems reasonable enough. I'm controlling a middle square. I'm controlling this square. Instead of opening theory right now, I'm pretty much relying on chess opening principles. Just putting my pieces on good squares. Additionally, something like this and this could be reasonable to trade off my knight, my bishop, which looks pretty hemmed in, for their bishop, which looks like it's going to have a lot of scope. So I'm very tempted to make this move. If I do go here, I guess there is the problem of when I go here, can they actually take here first? Looks like a cool tactic. So I think maybe what I want to do is first resolve this bishop. And then, if this is still available, then that's certainly a possibility. Also, just moving the b6 pawn on its own is a fine move, because unless I can find a way to bring the bishop out this way, the bishop's going to have to come out this way anyway. So if they did like takes, develop, decent chance I just play b6 to develop my bishop. What I'm looking at is like, what are the odds I can play e5 here reasonably? So I'm kind of like trying to parse this out in my mind. Okay, so I'm not going to take. That gets us into the territories of takes, and then just granting my opponent an attack. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it would not be unreasonable now to go here. If they take, I go here and here. And that looks pretty formidable. In fact, that's probably what I'm going to do. They may be eyeing this move themselves, which is reasonable with the same follow-up. So I guess I'm also wondering, do I take here now? I don't think I want to. I think I'm going to continue with this plan and just bring the knight here. If they want to take and I take and they go here and I push here and kick them out, that's totally fine. And then I also have the idea of going there. Okay. So pawns look a little bit less than ideal at the moment, and they may be. But if I get this move in f5 and really solidify that pawn, I don't know, that pawn looks pretty serious to me. And I don't think there's any issue with this move. I guess the most problematic for me would be knight coming over to c4. And at that point there's a chance I just take here. I could also simply take. Then maybe they take. I go here. They go back. At some point I push up. And then they get to put their bishop in there pretty happily. I think I'm just going to kick this knight for the moment. And we'll sort of see how this plays out. I will not be surprised if they go over to knight c4, though. That looks like a pretty reasonable spot. Because then even after, like, let's say I run my bishop back. Like, maybe they can get in there. I'm very much trying to decide if I'm willing to trade bishops here. I mean, I certainly am, but it's more, am I willing to give them that possibility for an attack? I don't think I want to. I think I want them to castle short with this pawn, and then maybe be able to, do that kind of stuff. So I think probably best is just save the piece and move on. Yes, they can trade here, but I don't think I mind. That just gets rid of, essentially the main defender for that king side if they end up castling there. They don't have any knights in the region anymore. I guess it's a little bit interesting of, probably not now, but can I set up e5 now? That's a redundant pawn on the e file. Maybe. That would free up my bishop on c8. Looking at if I were just, say, play e5 now, and they took with the pawn, and I took with my pawn, and they took with their knight. They're up a pawn. Their pieces are well situated. Yes, the rook does have the f-file, which is nice, but I just don't think that would be good. We also have this isolated e-pawn and e4. Just doesn't, it looks like it is not the time to do it. What's also nice, though, about this position now is this knight has a decent outpost on d5 that can't be that easily kicked. They have to move the knight, then they have to push the pawn. As soon as they move the knight, I'm going to play f5, and then the knight can simply slip in there. So I think I might just put the knight on this nice square. The only question is it actually good, or is it just like sort of look good? But it seems pretty reasonable to me. I don't have like a good way to develop this bishop yet, so sure, let's just keep playing some opening principles and make our pieces better. I guess it's not opening principles, right? Because I'm violating that by moving this knight yet a third time. But I think it's a reasonable move. I'm also still eyeing b6 as certainly a possible move to be able to try to do something with this bishop. Okay, so they move the knight to be able, most likely, to push c4. So my question, though, is if I push f5 and then they come back intending to jump in there, then what? I think I'm okay with just dealing with that knight there. It's not the end of the world. I can bring my knight around. I think this is the way to go. Because now this is open, this kind of stuff. I think the best move is just to come back. Yeah, I don't think that's the best move. So the problem with this move is that, like, if they try to push again, you're not doing anything. You're just getting rid of my redundant pawn. I wanted to go here anyway with my knight. So I'm pretty happy with how that shook out. Maybe I don't want to be there with my knight. Maybe if I could have, playing f4 there would have been right. And maybe I could have played f4. I didn't really think about that until just now. So f4 takes. Yeah, maybe f4 would have been good. Okay, now they castle. Not unhappy with that. This bishop is becoming worse by the moment. I'm pretty tempted to play b6. Try to do something with this bishop. Now that he's castled, something like c5 doesn't seem quite as strong. I'm definitely trying to decide, am I attacking king on the king side? I think probably putting the bishop here is right. And then if they put the bishop here, I may do this and just push all these pawns out and try to do a big attack. Yeah, I think I would love just stripping them of their last defender over there. That sounds amazing. Also, it would make getting e5 in a lot easier. It's like, for instance, I may play, like if they were to take and I took back, I could actually immediately play e5. And that seems quite strong. And now f4 may be coming with my bishop, you know, landing with somewhat of an attack. So we've got things cooking now, perhaps. I don't know, it's one of these misleading, or not misleading, but potentially misleading things. I'm not quite adept of enough of an attacker to be able to. I guess the way I should say it is like I don't fully see how this attack is supposed to develop. Like an exercise my coach will say is like, okay, you get the next 4 moves. What does this attack look like? And I don't really know. I don't have quite enough experience with these types of attacks to know like how what the ideal version of this would look like. Like if I had a couple moves. Certainly if I had 4 moves, this is a very easy one, right? I would I could take the bishop, then I could go knight g4, then I could go queen h4 and mate. But we don't have 4 free moves. So that's one way the attack could function, but I don't think that's a viable idea. So I am going to take there. And this looks like a big hole. Does that really do anything? This square is off limits. I can't really get any farther up, and I think I would rather be over here. I'm very tempted to play something like queen e7, connecting the rook soon. Push, takes, push. Everything gets involved. I also am a little bit interested in something like this type of assault, where we're kind of bringing everyone in this way. In fact, if my queen was here, this knight could go here now. But the knight is sort of in everyone's way at the moment, but also would be great to land there. So I'm a bit unsure what I'm doing. I can no longer do the thing where I go like here to try to get rid of this bishop. A, the knight's no longer there guarding it. B, this would not end that well anyway. I don't know. I'm going to go here without a great plan. I have a couple moves that seem reasonable, but I don't have a great plan. I feel like White's plan should probably be knight c4 and knight e5. I've been saying that a while. It just seems more and more the right plan as more pieces come off the board. That's just a really well-placed knight. Yeah, and my opponent is finally realizing it's a very strong move. And once he goes there, e5 is off limits. So yeah, I just don't see an attack. I don't really see what I'm supposed to do with this light square bishop. It's just really not a good piece. I think probably if the knight goes into e5, the best idea is to play knight d7. Gets my knight out of the way anyway. Perhaps here I just want to play g5 and gain some space. That's not necessarily like an all-out assault on the king. This might just be I'm gaining some space. Maybe I'm going to assault the king. Maybe not. It seems to be slowing down f4 also. I can just push by. And then on my own terms, maybe triple up on the h-file and break through. Again, if this comes, I'm coming back. Yeah, it's that thing where I feel like I might be winning if this piece wasn't so bad. But now that I've moved g5, I feel like I do have a possibility for improvement. Right? In this position that looks like it's going to be very closed, that could work quite well. Just very slowly maneuvering my bishop around to a decent square looks possible and promising. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see what they're going to do. Yeah, I feel like It's a weird spot. If I'm white, I'm not really sure how to improve. A move I would be tempted to make is queen b3, kind of constraining a bit. Yes, it's being backed up twice, but it's taking away this move. And it makes this move impossible. So it's doing quite a bit. Additionally, if the knight were to come in here and take here, I would be very happy. I didn't think about that. What if the knight goes here instead of there? Is this even better? That is annoying, right? Because now I can't move the bishop unless I'm willing to give up that pawn, and I'm not willing to give up that pawn in a position where it's closed and slow and I don't get anything for it. Like I'm not getting compensation for that. Although maybe I am. Let's say I went here, he was here, he took, I went here. It looks like I am getting that pawn back. So then that becomes the question of like, is that worth it? I'm not sure it is. My opponent has left the game. It says I can claim victory in 70 seconds. So that's a long time. I have to imagine my opponent will be back. This is certainly not a game that's over by any stretch. So I'm definitely rooting for my opponent to come back. Especially since this plan to release this on YouTube. It'll be a very disappointing game. It's like, all right. And then on move 19, I won by technicality. That's not the most fun. We'll see what happens with this opponent. Well, let's get back to possibilities. So it looks like white's best moves are probably one of these three. As bad as my bishop looks, my opponent's bishop is not a whole lot better, which is kind of interesting. Although this square looks pretty reasonable. Right, so let's say the knight goes here, and then the bishop goes there. That looks pretty good, right? It's got some threats on this pawn with check. Yes, it's being backed up twice, but, you know, it's still fine. Okay, we can claim the win in 4 seconds. I'm not going to. I'm going to give them a little more time because I would like to actually finish this game. I'm not doing this road to 2200 strictly to try to, you know, get to 2200. Obviously, I want to get to 2200, but I'm playing in instructional games for myself and you all. So I'm going to wait about 30 more seconds. And then at that point, there's really not that much time. Point waiting, the person is probably not coming back. Something happens sometimes in your life, and you have to go. Okay. Well, it's an interesting situation. If they were to go there, I think maybe the move would be to come back here with the knight. And then if they come back, I go here. I think at this point, I would be okay with that draw by repetition just because their knight is so much better and my bishop is not great and my knight is not that great. I think I would be okay with that. Okay. It's been like 3-4 minutes since they played a move. We are going to now claim the victory and move on to the analysis. So that is unfortunate. Alrighty. So where did things go a bit wrong for me? Or did they not? Alright, so this is the theory of the Jabava. E3 is the main move. And that is not the main move. It is the second best move. So I guess what I need to do is decide for myself which move I like. I don't really love this move because I thought I liked my plan of then quickly playing bishop d6. The openings database seems to give the advantage here to white. The engine said it was 0.4, so basically even. But the number one engine move is here and says I have a very slight lead. Let's say they develop normally. I castle. They continue developing normally. And the engine basically says you don't have to do this committal c6 move when you might want to do c5 at some point. Now we're hitting the knight. Now they have to resolve that. They do that with c4. We take. They're backing up the knight yet again. And now if we want, we could just say our bishop's not super great and take. We could play the knight to d5, which would leave us with an isolated pawn, which is not something I love, although the engine does not even have this takes anywhere near the top. It's not an isolated pawn. What am I talking about? It's totally fine. So yeah, so interesting. I guess moving forward, I'm not going to take the knight. There's really no reason to take the knight. And once you play this, now this knight is in jeopardy, so I felt like I had to move it. And then suddenly, while this all is fine, this bishop struggled. Now right here, the engine does like this as the number one move. And then if here, not this idea I had, which I still think is kind of reasonable. I think the slight downside and the reason I didn't like it is I'm moving my knight back to where it was yet again. It feels a little bit like we wasted too many tempi. The engine says just put it here, and yes, it's temporarily not great, but you know, like if they ever try to push the middle, suddenly it's going to open up and bishop should be fine. Okay, so we went down this road. This is even. Again, computer likes b6 to develop the bishop. I did this, which I thought was kind of intriguing. The engine really says this is not very good. And just says, you know, it's not a whole pawn yet, but we're getting close. And things aren't going great for me. And the more this game sort of continues, like here I was like, I'm doing pretty well. And the engine says they should castle. And then, wow, I'm feeling pretty good. But I'm still stuck with this bishop that it's unclear what it's doing, and it doesn't seem clear what my attack looks like. I don't think I have an attack. Like, the engine likes moves like c5 and b6 and just developing, and all these moves it says white is ahead now. Because black's pawn structure is slightly weaker, this bishop is kind of stuck. So that's kind of interesting. But the engine did not like this move. And I agree. I did not think this was a great move. You notice, as soon as I moved, I said, what about f4? And that's the number one move. Number one move there was f4. I did not make it. And this does look weird, actually. I didn't think they would do it that way. I was looking at, like, either this way, which doesn't look great for them, or just move the bishop. But this looks very weird to me. So we're left with these two terrible pawns. Our opponent's pawns look fine. And then white's best move is apparently to go here. What if they don't do that? What if white just castles? This pawn is hanging. That's the issue. Okay. So then we have two terrible pawns, but we would have been up a pawn. So that's not what happened. I missed that move. I went back because that was the move I was going to make. And so I just did it. And then I was like, oh, right. I probably shouldn't have done. So here was the tough one. I'm looking at b6, but I'm like, I don't know. What exactly does it do? So I just developed the piece to here to try to trade that off. We do trade. Again, b6 is the move to get that bishop in the game. I instead improve other pieces, g5, and the computer says you're losing. It's a 1 point advantage for white. Why? Well, you never got this bishop involved. And this is, of course, one of the best moves. I was planning to combat it with this move. Computer says b4. I takes, and let's see, a couple possibilities here. I mean, one of the ones I was looking at was this, which is on the list at least. And then from here, the computer says white is up by 2. And I guess part, at least, of the reason is we can put a lot of pressure on this diagonal very quickly. And it's still unclear how black is actually attacking. Like, I think we could look at this and be like, ooh, black has an attack. Ooh, we could, like, move over and what, though? And what? So the best move for the engine is let's finally start developing this bishop, perhaps. White can develop their rooks. The engine doesn't even have this as a move. Like, this is just horrific for the engine. Reason, well, now the rooks are coming in and everything seems to be falling apart. So, yeah, it looks like I was in pretty bad shape. My opponent did not come back, and I secured the victory. So, as Homer Simpson once said, the best way to victory is default, default. And with that, I'll see you next time, everybody.